Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I am your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we're speaking with Nadja Fromm. Nadja Fromm is a business coach. She spent over 2 decades climbing the corporate ladder with global powerhouses like Lindt and Kraft Heinz, building what looked like the perfect career from the outside. But along the way, she noticed something that didn't sit right. The smartest people in the room were often the most overwhelmed, and teams were incredibly busy, but rarely had space to think clearly. After experiencing severe burnout, and that forced her to completely rebuild her approach to work and success, Nadja discovered that most businesses' struggles don't come from lack of effort, but lack of clarity. Now she works with entrepreneurs and business owners who are caught in the cycle of constant busyness, but little real progress, helping them create businesses that feel lighter rather than heavier. Her insights on 3 types of clarity every business needs could completely shift how you think about achieving success in your own career or venture. You can find Nadja by going to her LinkedIn, Nadja Fromm, or on her website, from-consulting.com, or by emailing her at nadia@from-consulting.com. Hello, Nadja. It's fantastic having you on the show.
Glad to be here, Olivia.
I'm excited because even from the first time we spoke, we were aligned. We were having such impactful conversation, and I am so excited to continue that here. And let's dive right into it. To start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Nadja Fromm?
Oh, yeah, I know that's your signature question. And I know not a lot of people ask you that, so get ready. I want to hear your version too. Because, yeah, my brain was sparkling ever since we talked. Success to me now looks so different from when I first started my career. Because I thought I was chasing this version that, everybody dreams of. But today, speaking about that, success for me looks like freedom to be able to work with who I want to work with, making an impact and seeing where I can work with people where my impact really matters. And oftentimes, really, it's about freedom of my time. And that is really something that was truly the exact opposite of what, as you said, like my corporate life often dictated. And I just recently said to a friend, it is so crazy to have your own business because nobody ever tells you what to do. Ever. And I'm unmarried too, so it's nobody ever tells me what to do, period. I mean, that is for me success. What about you?
Oh, well, you were right. No one ever asks me this question. And you and I've talked, and I told you a story how like one day in conversation, my boyfriend brought it up to me, and I was like so thrown. I'm like, wait, you're using my signature question on me? You're gonna make me think about this right now? But for where I am right now and in business, and we have shared our journey and like our, parallels in our experiences before, but for me, it's helping people use their voice to make an impact and helping them do that through podcasting and really making sure people enjoy the ride, the experiences of everything they're doing. And that also lies into being able to touch and impact the most amount of people through all my services. That is why I also built the podcast growth partner platform to make it affordable and accessible to everyone. Is also, like you said, being able to be in control of your time. And that is
Mm.
one thing, even in recent time, I really had to get comfortable with. And so now one of the things I do is like I will, there's always those outliers, but I have the goal of working 4 to 8 hours a day, max 4 days a week. And there are times, and I have become conscious of it, where success looks like to me, where I say to my boyfriend, like, oh, you've off today because you were just, deployed for 4 days. You're going to be, oh, okay, you know what? I got it. I'm going to take off so we can spend time together. Or,
Freedom.
you know, fam something pops up with a family or friend, and I'm like, okay, got it. Be there. And not have to stress about, oh my God, what does this now mean for the business? Being able to
Yeah.
show up, be present in all aspects, and know you're still making that impact, but know that I have control over the time. I have control over, yeah, like that money's coming. I'm not stressing about money. I'm not stressing about those things. And that's really what success, I think, boils down to, is understanding that one, it changes, and it's definitely changed for me, but where I am now, I have those buckets of success that are personal and how I show up personally, and then for the business, and in ways they intertwine.
Yeah. So we both after making an impact, freedom of our own time and self-determination. No wonder we get along so well.
I know, right? Like I'm
Duh.
listening to you, and you like mentioned, you're like, I'm gonna bring it up to you, and you're saying it, and I'm like, okay, but you're basically saying what I'm gonna say. Like, I'm like, how is this gonna go? Well, and that being said, too, and to what we're both saying here is like, how did you get comfortable with saying, I have this freedom? Because I know for me, and I didn't work in corporate for as long as you did, but that in itself was such an adjustment because I went to like, okay, I'm going to start my business. Oh, I'm used to working these hours. So putting in that sweat equity and putting in that time building totally makes sense. I got it. That won't be a challenge. And then you get in, I got in such a constant momentum of it more or less just became the norm of, okay, until I hit this goal, until this happens, just keep grinding, just keep doing it. Like that's what you're supposed to do. And then it finally took like a few moments in time and a few things kind of happening at once to be like, oh no, now I'm going to start limiting myself and holding myself accountable to have the freedom I talk about when it comes to time and be doing that for myself. So what was that like for you?
There's so much to unpack that I had to take a note. I think the very first thing is that we need to understand that it all starts in your brain. I like to say that 90% of everything that we do is mindset. And I truly mean that, not in like woo woo, but I mean a little bit, but about truly what's going on in your brain. So if you think about it on the neuroscience level, when you are used to be busy, and you just mentioned like the grind, the hustle, and all of that that is always associated with entrepreneurship. I get I get the creeps from it because it is something that is so normalized and coming from corporate and every 9 to 5 and every career, we are always taught that you gotta grind and that success is painful and you gotta hustle and so we do it and we
Mhm.
get rewarded for that. And so we have built this system and our brain gets rewarded for the discomfort. Our brain is a little cookie monster. It just is going after dopamine. So every time we grind and we hustle and we stretch and it's awful and we cry in the bathroom before the board meeting, been there, done that, but we get the reward, we get the freaking dopamine. We're like, ooh, this is great. So you get used, you get comfortable in the discomfort. The shift that we have to make fundamentally is first off understanding that it's not about pushing harder. It's not about doing more. It is first off to disconnect this idea, this concept of more time means more money. That more hustle, more grind means more success. Fundamentally wrong, in my opinion. The first thing for you to start is detaching that in your brain and allowing yourself to become comfortable with being comfortable. Being comfortable in sitting in silence and being comfortable in not working at the weekend. Let's start there. So many of my clients come to me and asking me, Nadia, can you define downtime for me? What do you mean by that? The idea of unearned rest is truly something that I imagine some listeners are out there and saying like, oh, get like, what do you mean by that? We feel like we have to earn it. We feel like, well, I have to do, the laundry has to be done, all homework, but the kids needs to have the homework done. The dishwasher has to be emptied. The kids are in bed, everything is done, lunch is packed. Like, oh, now I deserve rest. That is the biggest BS. Who says that? It is this action reward system that our brain is just built on. So learning to detach yourself from that, learning these old patterns that have been, ground into you, that have been beaten into you, and also we taught ourselves for decades. That is the hardest part, to unlearn that and to become comfortable being uncomfortable at first. And it's so backwards. It's so counterintuitive at first. But if you think about the hormonal and chemical cocktail that's going on in your brain, that is where it makes sense. So it all starts with the nervous system of starting to understand what is really going on. And I'll tell you, I was sitting on, you know, international flights, and it was these night flights, and I remember one night, I was the only one working, and everybody was sleeping, the dim cabin, and you sitting there, and I was with my laptop, and I was, sitting there, with my headphones on, and I was nodding to the beat, and I was flying. PowerPoint presentation was going strong, and I felt like I was on top of the world. I was thinking I was better than everybody else. I was like, "Ah, I got this. I figured out something that you haven't, because I made it to the top of the food chain." And as you said, I really climbed to the my career ladder really high, very fast. But what I didn't realize is that this was just my brain rewarding me to be so uncomfortable. I thought this is great. And just now, very few years later, when I fly home to my family in Europe and I see someone working, I feel so sad because I see myself in them. And I wish I could just walk over, like close the laptop and be like, hey, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. Let's have a conversation because I can help you. Um, that is the biggest realization. That is the biggest shift. And we just don't have enough conversation about this.
And there were a few things I want to like unpack in what you said as well. But before I ask you the next question, your answer reminded me and like what that story you just told, which is so impactful. And I think so many of us can relate, whether you're an entrepreneur or someone in corporate or in any part of business or doctors, lawyers, right? Like I've watched my parents who are doctors, and my dad's like, we land and obviously he doesn't have cell service in the air, right? Up until recent years there wasn't necessarily that. And he'd be like, oh my god, I got these calls, like this is going on, whatever. And he'd immediately have to go into this mode of like, we're sitting on the tarmac and he has to answer this. Or my mom's like, oh my god, this patient, they text me about this. And sometimes it's as simple as like scheduling. Like my mom's gotten texts and her clients know she's on vacation and she's a therapist, and they're like, this is going on, like when can I see you next? And she's like, that could have waited, I told you when I was coming back. But then it's the urge to respond. But so I think we've all been there where it's like, oh, this is going on. And there's been times I've carried my laptop through the airport. There was one time I was working and my boyfriend and I were flying to a wedding I was in for my best friend at the time. And something literally started happening on the way to the airport. So
Mm.
we get through security. And now we're in the podcasting space. I'd scheduled like everyone out. None of this was emergent. In my head, though, it was like, this person's contacting me about this. I have to respond. And I pull my laptop. I'm texting them. And because I like was like, I gotta respond. I have their number. Let me start texting. We get through security. I pull my laptop out because I have TSA pre-check, so you don't actually have to pull it out for security. And I'm literally like backpack on, my boyfriend's wheeling my carry-on, and I'm on the computer like trying to type one-handed so that by the time we get on the plane, problem solved, nothing to worry about. Or, I've been on my way to a conference and I know that I'm not realistically going to be able to get XY done. So like I'm sitting at the terminal, like waiting to board and
Yep.
typing like, oh my God, where's the outlet? Because my laptop's actually going to die. But the biggest thing that reminded me of what you were saying was I what was it, like a year ago. I was on a flight with my family going international for my cousin's wedding. Okay. And apparently, for some reason, they had to change out the actual aircraft last minute. They didn't tell us before we boarded. It didn't really change anything. The only thing it changed was that there was actually no Wi-Fi on the plane. Okay. And in my row, because it's an international flight, right? And there's more seats, it's me and my parents, and then this one woman. My dad's on the aisle. Then it's me, my mom, and this one woman. The woman starts freaking out. I mean, we get in the air and she goes to log on to her computer and she can't. And she's buzzing the flight attendant, going like, I need Wi-Fi. What do you mean? I have to work on this. And they're like, this helicopter's, or not helicopter, this aircraft is just older. It doesn't have Wi-Fi. And she went on a rampage.
Would have been me.
And
Would have been me a few
and,
years ago. I feel
and
that.
yeah, and I was sitting there and I was like, well, and to your point, it was like we were taking a night flight. So it was about to be like everyone sleeping and she is just like
Mhm.
freaking out.
Yeah.
And I sat there and watched and hearing you tell the story, I went back to that moment where I was like, why was she freaking out? And she was freaking out because she felt this need and this pressure of just like, okay, well, everything's now crumbling because I planned for this and that's not going to happen. But going to my next question, one thing you said is people are comfortable with being uncomfortable. So often we hear the mindset of like, you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? And doing the things that make you feel pushed. Why do you think, and what is your thoughts on we're actually comfortable with things that are uncomfortable and not comfortable with the things that can be comfortable to us?
I see where you're getting with this, and I agree that there are certainly points where you need to certainly push yourself in certain areas because otherwise you don't get anywhere. Comfort zone is where you're at. So in order to change something and to reprogram and rewire your brain, we have to first detach yourself from this old programming where it is the busy equals comfort. That is what we need to break first. Now, there are different levels of comfort. There will always be a place where your brain will want to keep you safe. So that's the fundamental base function and setting of our brain is to keep us safe. It's that setting that, brought us to the top of the food chain, made us survive as a species. That is that fear-driven instinct that mistakes a stick for a snake rather than the other way around. And so the idea of getting out of your comfort zone is essentially trying to understand, am I avoiding going to this networking meeting because I am afraid to be visible? Or is there truly something harmful that can happen to me? That is the difference. That is work that needs to happen after we detach yourself from the old pattern. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
always, of course, I want you to push yourself, but there's always going to be the difference between the busy, the grind, the association from time to money. That is the biggest misconception. And there is where I'm very strongly of the opinion that we need to stop being so comfortable with being uncomfortable in that regard. But everything else, I do really think, Olivia, that we should think about it this way. If you build your business, if you, especially when you're a business owner, why would you build your business that feels like, why would you build a business that feels like that? Why would you build a business that is uncomfortable all the time? That is not enjoyable, that is not something that you like, that you don't look forward to in the morning. Well, then go and get a job.
Mhm.
Build your business in a way that feels easy, joyful. You look forward to genuinely. I mean, I don't look forward to doing my taxes and my bookkeeping and all, like I don't look forward to that. I'm not gonna lie. But the core of my work, the coaching, having conversations like this, I genuinely think I found a cheat code because it doesn't feel like work. I don't think I'm really working. I'm not gonna lie. So find a way to operate your business in that zone. And that should be incredibly comfortable. And then there are always ways for you. How can I grow my business? Well, that is going to be a little uncomfortable for a minute. Like, what is the next level of iteration for me to, for outbound marketing? What is going to be the next level to create inbound marketing, right? So those are always level that means growth. That is where your brain is going to say, wait a minute, that is unfamiliar. That is unpredictable. That might be unsafe. That is where we want to push. So always it's situationally. Are you really unsafe or is it just unfamiliar?
So one thing I'm going to say too is I completely agree with you should be enjoying what you do. My parents actually had a saying growing up, and it's something my dad said that came from his family, his father. He always passed it. He says it all the time. He would say, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And so when we got older, it was like this passion. I mean, my dad's now, he's 71. My mom's 69. They might yell at me for saying their age on the global podcast. But I joke with them, they so don't look their age. They don't want to retire. Like my dad jokes that he is retired because he works 40 hours a week now because he doesn't want to stop. And like being in the medical field back in the day, working 120 hours a week was the norm, right? And so he's like,
Basically works
he's like,
part-time.
yeah, he's like, I basically don't work. My mom's like, yes, you do. You work what a normal person's full week is. And sometimes that's shorter days, right? Like it's flexible. But that concept always, and like watching them now, even being in an older age frame, right? Is they don't want to stop. It's not because they need the money at all. It's not because of it. It brings them so much joy that they're like, okay, yeah, like I could scale back, but why would I not do something I love? So even like as we got older, we got into college and like I kind of changed what I did, and like as I've grown,
Mhm.
my dad would always turn to me as I bring up this idea, or I'm, this or that, or maybe we're struggling, and he goes, well, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And so he would always enforce that of like, and sometimes we're like, okay, dad, sure, whatever,
Roll
right?
eyes.
Yeah, like, okay, whatever. But then there's also the times where it's like, you need to hear that because he's saying that to enforce to you, are you enjoying this? Like when I was getting, right before I started my well, once I started my podcast, and then I was like, oh my God, I really love this. I want to keep doing it. Like this and that. And I was kind of going in that transition of leaving corporate and just doing this full time. My dad was like, and I was really struggling. I would count down every minute of my day. And my dad would look at me and goes, you love what you're doing. Never work a day in your life of like, you hate this right now. This is why it's like miserable. This is why you're burning out so much. You're not enjoying it. And so like when you said that, I was like, yep, heard that my whole
Yeah.
life. But also going off the what you were saying about disconnecting, because I love that idea and that philosophy of like, no, you have to first disconnect. What is it? And then understand that thing that is making you uncomfortable. Is it really making you uncomfortable, or it's because your brain's trained a different way? What is the first thing you did and or do you help people do to get more comfortable with disassociating what the, I'll say, societal norms are around being busy to be successful or doing XYZ, working longer hours to make that money, all the things.
Well, it is highly individual. We all have our own stories and we all have our own reasoning to be motivated in that certain way. For me, whenever I think back to being at home, family vacation. I could never envision my dad not working. Not double negative here, but I could never envision it. As I got older and my dad now retiring, um, still to this day, when I come home, fly home to Europe, and I don't see him in his office, I'm confused because this picture of him not with a laptop on his lap is so confusing. My brain still doesn't get it. So it's so entrenched into me that you work, you grind, you hustle, you gonna do something, you have a job, so you have something like that is was always equal to safety. So it's highly individual because where do you get that idea from? Did someone tell you that? Did you tell that yourself? Did you learn that? So we have to first understand what's the motivation. Maybe there's some underlying trauma that you that there's some self-worthiness challenges. Maybe there is physical challenges, that there is self-regulation challenges that we need to talk about. So the work that I do is very much informed by, helping you, neurolinguistically understanding that words really matter, how you talk to yourself, about your business. But also the attitude towards your business, your life, and your own well-being. So it's a very holistic approach. And I kind of hate saying holistic approach because it's like, well, flat and everybody says it. But I truly mean it in a sense that it's not about just looking at the business and, okay, let's see how you double your revenue next year. But it's about, where are you at? How do you get here? Where do you want to be? Why? How do we get there? What's standing in the way? Why? And so I think about the disconnect and the downtime. One of the first things that to try to kind of like give some like broad advice, that one of the first things I would say is reserve very intentionally time that is just for yourself, that is some shape or form where you can get back into your body. The mind-body connection is something it's the first thing that gets lost when we are in a panic fight flight mode. That is where really that like emotional and like the oldest part of our brain is taking over. The amygdala, our smoke detector goes off. It's like beep beep, like something happening. So instincts take over. Breath gets flat, and so we really just reactive. The frontal part of the brain, the frontal lobe here, that is what really makes us human, if that makes sense. It's the newest part. That's where logic, reason, innovation, strategy sits, which is why with that woman on the plane that you mentioned, she was in panic mode. You cannot ration, you can't argue with her. You can't explain on a logical basis that you'll be fine. You're not a heart surgeon. You'll be okay. It's just an email, right? But in that moment for her, it's life or death. Her body is as threatened as if she would be chased by a bear right now. That is what is happening in your body. So the first thing for us to do is find pockets where you can reconnect your mind with your body. That is breath work. That is physical movement. It's journaling. It's those moments. I teach EFT, emotional freedom techniques. So it's tapping, which sends signals to your brain and stimulates relaxation signals. Beautiful technique. It's one of the first things I teach my clients. And and it helps us to find a first anchor for your nervous system, a first glimpse for your brain that brings you to a place of, I'm safe. Because as long as your brain treats your email inbox as the same as like a bear waiting behind a bush, we're not able to talk strategy. We're not able to talk marketing, messaging, strategy, or financial projections. That is the starting point. That is the very first thing. Mind-body connection.
And I think that's so important as well. And I love how you went through that because if we're not connected, mind and body, as you said, and you're a great example, is then we're always in this fight or flight, whether we think of it that way or we don't. And I've even realized, changed in myself when I take the time on a regular basis to get outside, to do things, to, like I joked this past winter, my boyfriend and I, my parents were like, Olivia, are you sure you want to do this? Like, are you guys, like, you guys go this much? We were living 20 minutes from a ski resort and we had unbelievable snow. And we both, as long as he's not underway, we both don't work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we'd go up first thing in the morning and we ski. And sometimes it's a half a day, sometimes it was whole days. There were points where, because of our busy schedules, um, he'd have a day off. I'd be like, you know what, I'm taking a day off. And we go and we ride with some friends, or I just, he does way harder stuff than me. So I'd be like, I'm gonna hang out over here, I'm gonna ride, come ride with me when you're done. And I just have those moments. And we were going so much, people were joking like, oh, you need Olivia and John, you can find them on the mountain.
I
But
love
it was
that.
like some of the great moments in as I was building the podcast growth partner, where I'd be sitting on the chairlift and I'd be like, oh my God, yes, have I thought about that? Oh, like even in, and I've talked about this before, it took me being on the mountain to realize that my goal of bringing the business $1 million a year as a solo entrepreneur was not actually the goal that I had in mind. Because and then like I did some more research on it. Like it was this epiphany moment of like, wait, I need to research this a little bit more. Because I made this goal like X amount of months ago, and I passively heard someone talking about the stats and what that, like, how, what it actually takes to reach that. I'm like, wait. And I literally, at that point, I was skiing by myself. And so I ran into the building. And in the one spot it has Wi-Fi. And I got on, not gonna lie, guys, like ChatGPT can be useful. And I sat down. I was cold anyway, so I did need a break. And I start ChatGPTing. And I got really specific and really narrow. And I collected all the data. And it was this clarity moment. And then I was like, it took me like 30 minutes and I was like, oh wait, now I get it. This is like I kept asking it questions and people were like, what are you doing? I'm like, people I know who work there. And I'm like, oh, I'm working through something right now, right? And I need that 30 minutes. And then I went back out on the mountain and I felt so relaxed. I felt so in
Mhm.
tune. And I needed that break. And now it's like riding bikes, walking, right? All the things. But I think that's so important. And when you get that time, the clarity opens up so much more. The thing
Yes.
I also want to ask you is, in the beginning of you talking, you said, and I love that you did this, you, whether it was purposely or subconsciously, you emphasized the word why 2 times. And you said it within like a minute time span. Why is understanding the why so important?
Very intentionally. I'm glad you caught that. Why is one of the first questions I ask anybody. And there's a technique that I kind of borrowed from organizational management, and I think it's something about it's called the five whys, and I do think it comes from a root cause analysis, understanding why did this happen, why don't people follow the safety protocol, and you dig 5 levels into the why don't they do this? Oh, because they don't care. Why don't they care? Because they don't understand. Da, 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 da. And then you understand the true root cause. So I learned that throughout my executive time. So I borrowed that principle. And I said, if we would be able to truly dig so deeply into your motivational why, your intrinsic why did you build this business? Why do you do this work? Why did you choose this line of, this industry, this service? We going to dig or into something that is almost like a well of never-ending motivation and inspiration. And when we find that, it is going to be your North Star. It is going to be something that we can always, always go back to and say, this is why I do this. It's very similar to, got so inspired by the Ikigai model. Have you heard of that? Oh my goodness. So for the listeners, so Ikigai is this Japanese concept that essentially translates to the reason of being, reason for being. And it overlays, think about it as four circles. And it overlays what you love, what you're really good at, what people need, and what you could get paid for. And in the very middle, where all those four overlap, that's your Ikigai. So both ideas from the organizational management, root cause analysis, and the Ikigai, that is where I took my 5 why technique from. And that is to really find that almost the antidote to burnout. Because now that I understand, now that I have my clarity on what my reason for being is, and paying forward the bruises and scratches and the learnings and all that wisdom that I collected over the years of how to not do it, how you can do it better, how success is not connected to grind and pain and blood, sweat, tears. But there's ways to do this with your brain and not against it, and be friendly to your body and don't work against it and don't break it because you only have one. And and ever since I found that, I never get tired of the work. I always find inspiration. And I'm truly convinced that when you find your true why and dig deep, at least 5 levels, that you will find your North Star. And that will be a never ending resource of inspiration.
Well, I will say I was hoping you were going to go down the path in this answer of like why you said the word why twice, and I had a feeling it was intentional. Something down this path, and so I am so ecstatic that you brought up A, that I was right, it was intentional. B,
Of course.
that,
You do
that
this for a living, so you're
yeah,
listening well.
that it goes back to that fundamental idea of asking the whys and continue to dig. And I'm a big component of one, knowing the why and getting down to that root cause. I've been doing that before I even knew what the 5 whys was. I remembered a time my freshman year we did this national entrepreneurial uh like competition, and
Mhm.
it had to be in teams, so I was part of the team of the person who had the original idea, so you're helping him get money, right, and win that money. And we actually ended up winning, and beating out all these people, and it was a 72-hour competition. This before I knew what the 5 whys was, and I sat in that room, and I was the only female, and the other 4 guys were so annoyed by me in the first 24 hours because they were building this out, and I go, but why are we doing it that way? And what happens if that goes wrong? What's the why? How are we fixing that? And I just kept digging. And they're like, why are you asking so many questions? We only have so much time. And I'm like, because we have to understand this. We have to
Mhm.
understand the core of it. And I've always taken it. And then once I learned about the 5 whys, I was like, yes, we always need to go down and be able to understand the why at each level. And then that fundamental why of what it drives us or why that solution actually works. So happy you
Yeah.
brought that up. Like,
Yeah.
yes, because it is
Yes.
so important. I was even on a call earlier today before, we're here. And a guy asked me about ROI in podcasting. And I said, the specific dollar amount you can make, like he gave me a scenario and he's like, okay, what's the specific dollar amount you can make from XYZ? What would that timeline be? And I looked at him and I said, anyone who tells you there is a specific dollar amount you will get from being a guest on a podcast or hosting your own podcast in a certain amount of time, I said, is unethical because they're lying to you
Yeah.
and they are
Sounds
fabricating
iffy.
data.
Hmm.
Yeah. And he looks at me like he was expecting a very different answer. And he kind of pushed it. And I said, no, like I'm not telling you. I'm not going to give you that answer that you're looking for because I can tell you the why. One, why that's unethical. Why, all these things. And I said, two, why that's not the way you should be looking at it. And I'm like, and here's all the data. And I went and he looked at me and he goes, but why does that matter? And I'm like, here's the point. I can now explain that to you. And anyone who sits in a call and can't explain that, especially in something where there isn't a you do this, this is the
Yeah.
exact outcome you will receive, I said, doesn't actually understand their whys. So like that
Love
made
it.
me think of it too.
Love
For
it.
you, one thing we've talked about, I want to say purposefully and so also at a level of like subconsciously is burnout. For you, how, even in running your own business, do you work to not getting a point in your day, in your week, where you're feeling that burnout kind of peek through?
Well, burnout to me is luckily something that is something from the past, and though it was a very familiar companion for many, many years, and I think over my career I collected three because my learning curve is flat, and I had to really look very closely. And the last burnout really was no warning shot, no more. That was the 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 one that really forced me to do something that I would have never allowed myself, and that was to force me to that complete stop, where my body and mind and soul just couldn't do anything anymore. I physically couldn't get myself to open the laptop. Today, because I so fundamentally unsubscribe even to the idea of being busy. So when friends ask me, so, Sunday brunch, you hang out in your friends group and they were like, oh, how's your week? You have a busy week ahead of you? I genuinely can't really relate to that because I don't feel busy. So burnout to me is the result of feeling unaligned, or misaligned is probably the better English word, feeling misaligned with the work that you do, not listening to your body, because your body probably told you months before you burn out. And it's a lot about that we in today's world we learn to not listen to the body. We learn to push down intuition and gut feeling. And so when you lose that mind body connection, that is that's like losing the seatbelt. And when you do work that you don't care about, that even maybe goes about against your values, goes against what you care about, all of that now, nothing is filling your cup. You hate what you're doing, so your brain only sees everything is negative, everything is in danger. Your nervous system and your entire body is constantly flooded with stress hormones. Everything is clashing together. That is the perfect storm. So there's so many signals for you to watch out for to avoid burnout. And yeah, in summary, for me, that is what brought me there, unfortunately, multiple times. And now that I understand the architecture of burnout, I'm able to help people avoid it. At least spot signals early and support people that suffer from it. And just overall, I think we all just need to talk about it more. I think there has been this stigma for a long time that, suck it up and just work harder. But I do think it's a clinical diagnosis. It is a problem of today's world where everything is now and faster and communication is instant and everything is expected to happen yesterday. And with with AI, small tasks just happen truly within seconds. And so everything just becomes fast and faster, and our brains are just dumbed by stimuli all day, sounds, images, messages, TV ads, social media, all those impulses from all our senses is a sensory overload. And those are a lot of contributing factors. And so if you don't find time and space to prioritize yourself, to get back to what we just talked about, the body-mind connection, then quite frankly, you will at some point or the other get burned out. And burnout doesn't have to be the 9 to 5 job. Burnout doesn't have to be the Wall Street career person. Burnout happens to the homemaker. Burnout happens to people who are in between jobs. Burnout has nothing to do with how much work you have. It is so incredibly subjective, and it is the result of so many different things. So listen to your body. Your body tells you, and the body will send you the signals. And if we don't listen to it, you keep pushing it down and you say, oh, it's fine. I'm just going to get through this. And then so many people just listen to your friends talk about this. Oh, I'm so stressed. I'm going to be fine. Like, I just have to get through this busy phase. And then, in June everything is fine. No, it won't be fine. Because guess what? In June, there will be more. And then there's something else. And then it never stops. Nothing will change if you don't change something. It will take deliberate and intentional action, and it starts with yourself. You have to choose yourself first. That's where it starts.
What an impactful way to end, start to wrap up the show, because it's also about understanding the symptoms that you start to feel before the catastrophic event happens, right? And hitting that point and being like, okay, this warning sign, the first alarm is starting to go off. I need to treat that. Nadja, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
Oh, please find me on LinkedIn. My name has the super unique spelling, so you'll find me right on top. That's the channel where I'm most active. So hit me up, connect with me, send me a DM. I love talking, in case you haven't noticed. Would love to hear your story.
Thank you, Nadja, for all of your insight today.
Thank you for having me.
And a few of our key takeaways from today's conversation include 90% of what we do starts in the brain. And that those ideas, our feelings, everything. And I love how Nadja brought that up early on in the conversation, because I think it's important to go back to that anchor and that understanding of where does it actually start, and can we act. A lot of people say, well, can we change it? Answer, yes, because it starts in how we're thinking, as well as why would you build a business that feels like crap? Build one that brings you joy. And I think that's ultimately one of the themes of today's conversation as well, is understanding, are you building something that's going to make you resent what you're building and the time you're spending? Or are you building something that where you're constantly at that place of joy and excitement, and, as Nadia said, not feeling like you're working, not feeling stressed like you have a lot on your plate, as well as reserve intentional time for yourself. I love how Nadia brought this up, because I think it's something, especially as entrepreneurs, as busy individuals, as she perfectly said in her example, we go, okay, well, I have to get all these other things done first. Then it's the reward of being able to relax and watch TV or go for that walk. I have to do this first. And sometimes, as she brought up in that example, it can be uncomfortable, right? She brought up getting comfortable with what is actually the uncomfortable part, which is being with yourself and having that time, is saying, nope, I can take the break. I can take this time to go do this and nothing's going to change. I will actually show up better than I would have if I just kept pushing through this. And lastly, and this is a challenge I want to give everyone today as well, is understanding the 5 whys. And taking time this week to ask yourself and go through your 5 whys and get to that root. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Nadja Fromm. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.